A good video game villain can absolutely make or break a game. From the characters of pure evil that just want to watch the world burn, to the more sympathetic antagonist, usually brought about by tragedy and poor circumstances. These are the things I want to talk about today, so without any more rambling from me, here are some of my most favourite video game villains. Vaas Montenegro, Far Cry 3. Although the quality of the series nowadays is a far cry from what it used to be in my opinion, that doesn't change how good Far Cry 3 was when it first released. And part of why it was so good is just how good Vaas was. Even if he wasn't the main bad guy, his confidence mixed with unpredictability and pure insanity made him something akin to the Joker, with a cruel and sadistic nature that fills the player with dread. Even if it does also lead to a crazy amount of intrigue to the character and his motivations. He has an innate ability to get into your head and make you question your own sanity and morals. Over the course of the game, Vaas hints at his past and how he was made to be a warrior by Citra, allowing it to slowly dawn on the protagonist and the player that your story is mirroring that of Vaas's as you become a warrior yourself. Then you have his monologue on the definition of insanity, which is perfectly delivered, letting you feel every single piece of emotion Vaas is going through, making it easy to forget that he's literally talking about killing you. Which leads me to Michael Mando's portrayal of Vaas, not only in his voice acting, but in Ubisoft's ad campaigns as well. He was the perfect choice to capture everything the character is, from his voice, mannerisms and wide-eyed stare. It's like watching a masterclass in crazy. Pyramid Head, Silent Hill 2. There's 1,000 different things I could say about Pyramid Head. He's an icon of horror, and I cannot begin to explain how excited I am to see just how terrifying he is in the remake. But to get back on track, Pyramid Head is a reflection of James's psyche, his inner demons and masculine tendencies manifested, making him confront his guilt and need for punishment, which unlike other horror characters, makes him resonate with players on a deeper level. The very first time you see him is the other side of some bars, just silently watching you, with little reaction from James. His large helmet obscuring any facial features, and his intimidating stature and knife making him seem even more menacing and domineering. And even when you see him for the second time, it's during an assault on 2 mannequins, which just makes his presence even more unsettling. And thanks to Silent Hill being quite ambiguous by nature, that ambiguity adds to Pyramid Head's status as a horror icon, leaving players only their own imagination as to what the menacing figure could be, why he is constantly following you, and what his intentions could be. Personally, if I was to run into Pyramid Head, I'd just accept my fate and let him fold me into a pretzel. But I've never been much of a fighter, to be honest. GLaDOS, Portal 1 and 2. GLaDOS is easily one of the most endearing villains I can think of. Her disturbing charm and eerily cheery demeanour against the barrage of insults and threats that she throws at the player make her amusing, yet extremely untrustworthy. Her power of manipulating the environments around you and attempts to trick the player make it hard to gauge what she might try next. She comes across like a child with a magnifying glass on top of an anthill, toying with her victims, leaving you under constant surveillance from this omnipresent being. But beyond her hardwired components lies a tragic backstory that's incredibly well thought out and brings a sense of humanity to her, making you feel like the lies she says to you are also lies she's telling herself, convincing herself that the things that she is doing are good, in a twisted and concerning kind of way. But one of the things that always stuck out to me about GLaDOS was Ellen McLean's fantastic voice acting abilities. One thing pretty much all fans loved about GLaDOS is her deadpan and sarcastic delivery, making you feel more like an underachieving lab rat rather than just a test subject, showing her thinly veiled contempt for human life and putting that against her childlike enthusiasm at her own destructive tendencies makes it hard not to come away amused, even if she does want to kill you in a horrific manner. Andrew Ryan, BioShock. Being the face of one of the biggest twists in all of gaming is probably a good enough reason to put you on the list already, but to go into some detail here, Andrew Ryan was a charismatic and complex character, wanting to build Rapture as a way of escaping what he saw as oppressive political, economic, and religious ideologies, which is a long-winded way of saying he was looking for a big tax dodge. But his intense greed and inflated sense of self-worth eventually made him victim to his own twisted ideals and philosophy, with his speeches and audio tapes allowing you to see and even slightly understand his flawed motivations, with his infamous "would you kindly" reinforcing his cunning and control. I've seen some people argue as to whether Andrew Ryan was actually a villain, but I'd argue that regardless of his intentions at the beginning of Rapture, he still drowned in his own ambitions and was ultimately defeated by addiction to control, much like the citizens of Rapture and their addiction to Adam. Even in his final moments, after rigging Rapture to explode, he asked the player to kill him, giving him the final laugh against his rivals and taking control of his final moments, displaying that exact power he has strived for most of his life. Ganondorf, the Legend of Zelda. Other than maybe Bowser, Ganondorf is easily the most recognizable villain in Nintendo's repertoire, maybe even in all of gaming. First appearing in 1986 in the original Legend of Zelda, and being a nuisance to the people of Hyrule ever since, Ganondorf has had many different appearances since his inception, from his blue pig-like form in the original, to his more darker and human-like appearance in Twilight Princess, and the more abstract and fragmented Calamity Ganon in Breath of the Wild. His designs have always brought a breath of new life to the series. But one thing that has remained consistent throughout all of these iterations is that he's an evil bastard with an insatiable lust for power. He's the embodiment of pure evil, and like our real world, represents that even when one evil is defeated, another will take its place. Every time you fight him throughout the games, it's a spectacle, taking everything each game has brought to the table and bringing you a final showdown that sticks with you each and every time. Since he's such a mainstay of the series, he's ingrained into the mind of Zelda fans all over the world. Also, if he didn't keep coming back to torment Hyrule, Link would just be some blonde weirdo breaking pots and attacking chickens, and that wouldn't be okay. Handsome Jack, Borderlands. Handsome Jack is one of the most beloved but also most hated video game villains there's ever been, comparable to someone like Joffrey in Game of Thrones initially, but a lot more sympathetic once you get to know him. What's so good about Handsome Jack's character is his build-up as an evil, deranged villain, with hints of humanity mixed into his personality. His constant taunting and absolute disdain for your existence makes you absolutely hate him, but his goal of saving Pandora and ridding the planet of psychopaths and bandits is an extremely empathetic one, especially with the context of the pre-sequel. Although we're initially set up to hate him, we end up actually kind of rooting for him and feeling like he could have been the hero all along if our character hadn't gotten in the way of his plans. Jack's descent into madness is a tragic tale of loss and betrayal, the loss of his wife and later on his child, and the betrayal he felt from the people he thought he could trust. So when we meet him in Borderlands 2, he's pretty much fully bought into his role as the antagonistic bad guy. His clear taste for murder, along with his sarcastic and dark sense of humour, persists through pretty much the whole game, infuriating the player to the point that by the time you actually get to put a bullet in his face, you're reacting in a juvenile excitement, pretty much the same way he would be, displaying that his descent into madness isn't that hard of a journey after all. Lady Dimitrescu, Resident Evil 8. Although some people will probably say that Albert Wesker should be here instead, I would argue that Wesker looks like the kind of guy that would try and sell you NFTs, and for that he is stricken from my list. But anyway, if Lady Dimitrescu was a villain, say, 10-15 years ago, I don't think she would have captured the attention of pretty much the entire gaming landscape the way that she did. But like Pogs in the mid-90s and Guitar Hero in the 2000s, in the year of our Lord 2021, everyone wanted a thick goth girlfriend, and Lady Dimitrescu was there to fill that void. But even leaving her assets out for a second, Lady Dimitrescu was an extremely memorable villain, even amongst the huge backlog of Resident Evil villains. The castle is beautifully designed and realised, like you can feel the cold air blowing down the corridors or smell the damp halls as you walk through. It's like this place has been frozen in time, being toyed with by her daughters, discovering the secrets of her home, and reading all the letters from the past maids that have worked there build the tension and intrigue until it all culminates into an epic boss battle with a mutated Dimitrescu after you stab her with a special dagger, calling back to her vampiric-like characteristics. And let's not forget the voice performance of Maggie Robertson. She was absolutely phenomenal and made the character stand out so much more. That's the video. Why don't you let me know who your favourite video game villain is? And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps me out with the algorithm gods. And I'll see you in the next video.